Our Dhamma practice unfolds according to its own causes and conditions. It doesn't follow our wishes. Sometimes when we practice, we keep wanting this or that. Other times, we consume too much information. One teacher teaches in one way, another in the other. The more we listen, the more confused we become, until we no longer know how to practice. If we truly understand the principles of Dhamma, we won't be surprised or perplexed, even when mental development is taught differently in different places. Practice can be classified into 3 approaches: using samadhi to lead wisdom, using wisdom to lead samadhi, and using samadhi and wisdom together. 1. Concentration preceding wisdom. Sometimes we meet teachers who are truly good. It's not that they're wrong. They themselves practice by using samadhi to lead wisdom. So when they teach, they emphasize this approach, that one must use samadhi to lead wisdom. To use samadhi preceding wisdom, we must first cultivate true concentration, developing one-pointedness of mind and object, truly unified. This stable quality of mind is what we call the knower. The knower can be cultivated in 2 ways. First, many teachers of the past trained by entering jhana, or deep absorption states. The mind would enter appana samadhi. For example, they might begin by observing the breath, starting with long inhalations that reach the abdomen. Then the breath gradually becomes more and more shallow, remaining only at the tip of the nose. We remain aware at the tip of the nose until the mind stops wandering, without needing to be forced. At that point, the mind has attained samadhi. If the mind continues training until it becomes fully collected, rapture, piti, and happiness may arise. But we don't get lost in them. Clearly, the mind stays with the breath, entwined with it, yet even that remains a burden of the mind. When the breath fades away, the mind lets go of the breath and the nose. The mind turns inward, toward itself. This is the 2nd jhana, where a stronger, more stable version of the knower mind arises. In the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, up to the 8th jhana, the mind abides with the knower. As calm deepens, sometimes the body disappears, the world vanishes, and only awareness remains. At first, one has mindfulness within emptiness. This is the first formless jhana, perceiving space. It is empty. As one continues practicing, the knower still remains. One clearly sees that even the emptiness is something known. The mind then turns back to observe the knower itself. This is the 2nd formless jhana, viññāyāñjāyatana, the base of limitless consciousness. One sees the knower becoming the known, layer upon layer, without end. Consciousness becomes boundless, infinite, yet mindfulness is not lost. If mindfulness is absent, the mind slips into wrong samadhi. Looking further, one sees the mind dwelling with emptiness as its object, where it becomes a burden. Turning back to observe the knower brings layer upon layers of knowers, also a burden. So the mind lets go of both sides, both the knower and the known. Awareness remains, but without holding on to either. This is the 3rd formless jhana, akinjanyatana, the base of nothingness. Yet mindfulness is not lost. After that, perception weakens, a bit like drowsiness, but mindfulness is not lost. The mind that has passed through the jhanas, from the 2nd to the 8th, cultivates a powerful knower. Upon emerging from samadhi, the mind remains firmly established in knowing, but this won't last beyond 7 days. After all, it's impermanent, subject to the 3 characteristics of Dhamma. When the mind emerges from samadhi and the knower is firmly established, this is when the teacher instructs one to cultivate insight. This is the principle of samadhi preceding wisdom. Wisdom cultivation after emerging from the jhana involves observing the body or feelings. If one's faculties aren't yet strong, begin with the body. See clearly it's not us. It's just something known, something observed. There is no self. Keep observing the body, and eventually one sees within the body there isn't only the body. But there are also feelings. Sometimes it aches here, sometimes there's pain there. When it subsides, it seems the body is at ease. Then pain returns, and there's suffering again. One sees clearly. Feelings arise and pass on their own. Feelings fall under the three characteristics, just as the body does. This is the path for those who practice with samadhi preceding wisdom. This is how it's walked. Knowing this, if we can enter jhana, we do so. And when we emerge, we turn our attention to the body. Why not observe the mind? Because right after emerging from jhana, the mind is calm, comfortable, and empty. There's nothing to observe. Nothing is changing. That's why the teachers direct attention to the body. This is why the texts say, contemplation of the body, or kayanupassana, and contemplation of feeling, vedananupassana. These foundations of mindfulness are suited to those with samatha inclination, to those skilled in jhana. So what they're doing aligns precisely with the scriptures, but only in one approach, the path of samadhi leading wisdom. People of our generation generally cannot enter concentration easily. We suffer from short attention spans, restless minds, or spend our days working in jobs that require constant thinking. Thinking this, thinking that, all day long. A mind that is always thinking becomes stuck in views and opinions, such as what's right, what's wrong. Those caught in such views and opinions cannot sit and enter jhana. So, people of our time mostly cannot enter jhana. Out of 100 or even 1,000 practitioners, perhaps only one might succeed. Most cannot do it. But failing to do so should not cause alarm, and one should not force it. Some hear that certain masters enter jhana and feel they too must do so. But that makes them disciples of a teacher, not disciples of a Buddha. The Buddha did not teach Dhamma in such a narrow way. He taught the path of wisdom preceding concentration as well. When using wisdom preceding concentration, one must still employ concentration while cultivating wisdom. But the concentration here is momentary concentration or kanika samadhi, not full absorption concentration or appana samadhi. For example, from full absorption, one can emerge into access concentration, upacara samadhi, and then contemplate the body. Under the power of access concentration, one may see the body break apart, explode, turn into radiant light, or transform in various ways. All this comes from the force of access concentration. When entering from jhana, the mind settles at this level. But there is another kind of concentration, namely momentary concentration or kanika samadhi. This does not arise from entering jhana. It arises quite simply whenever we have mindfulness that knows phenomena as they truly are. For example, in later generations, many teachers taught this. In the tradition of Luangpu, for instance, one moves the hand in a certain way, but the point is not for the mind to drift to the hand. He said that this was to shake the element of knowing, to arouse the knower. One moves and sees the body moving, while the mind is the one that knows. As the body moves, the mind may run off to think. yet the mind still knows that it has wandered off to think. In that moment of knowing the phenomenon, that the body is moving or that the mind is moving in thought, if we know the phenomenon as it truly is, momentary concentration arises. The mind automatically becomes firmly established. Therefore, when mindfulness arises, concentration arises. This is another method, one that is especially suitable for those who think a lot. I practiced concentration since I was a child. When I met Luangpu later, he taught me to cultivate wisdom by observing the mind. This was because my temperament was not one to believe anything easily, especially beliefs about thoughts and opinions. I would not accept them readily. I was full of my own thoughts and views. Whatever a teacher was praised for, I would acknowledge they were good, but whether that goodness applied to me was another matter. My mind was like that. Luangpu even asked me whether I believed him. I replied, I don't believe yet, because I haven't seen it. I didn't say I disbelieved. He asked again, do you believe? I said, I haven't seen it yet, but I will go and practice. So we do not believe simply because teachers say so. For someone with a strong disposition of clinging to views, observing the mind and heart is the suitable practice. The mind changes quickly, very swiftly, and it is not under our control at all. For someone like me, full of views and opinions, encountering strange things could not be accepted. If I felt I could not control the mind, I could not accept it. So I tried to keep observing again and again. What is happening? Why is the mind like this? Continuing to observe. Sometimes the mind would gather into concentration. Observing, I would see the mind altering. Happy, unhappy. Wholesome, unwholesome. Spinning around like this. Watching on, sometimes the mind would collect deeply, so deep that the body disappeared. While observing the mind, I saw worry arise. Watching further, the worry vanished. The body vanished. The whole world vanished, leaving only the mind alone. I went to pay respects to Luangpu and told him I was observing the mind and it seemed to sink down. He said, the mind entered concentration. I replied, but I wasn't doing formal meditation at that time. I was just observing the changes of the mind. He said, observing the mind brings concentration automatically. Therefore, cultivating wisdom also produces concentration. But before wisdom can be developed, there must first be basic concentration, momentary concentration. Momentary concentration is the state where, for example, the mind drifts. As soon as we know it has drifted, the knower arises momentarily. We must train so that once the mind drifted, then we know so. It drifts again, then we know so, repeatedly, until the knowing arises frequently. So frequently it seems as if the knower can be maintained. In reality, it cannot be maintained. It arises and falls repeatedly. It does not last 7 days. Lasting 7 minutes is already excellent. At the moment when the mind gets lost and we know it, the mind becomes established. Wherever mindfulness touches, it sees there is no self. Thoughts are especially quick. They arise rapidly. Now, the mind is good, then bad, greedy, then not greedy, angry, then not angry, deluded, then not deluded, restless, then calm, depressed, then relieved. Keep knowing and observing continuously. There is another path, which is the path of using concentration and wisdom together. To follow this path, one must be proficient in jhana to the level of mastery and also be skilled in observing the mind. The emphasis is on the mind, because when entering jhana, the mind lets go of the body. There is no body to observe, so attention rests with the mind. The body may remain faintly, like a background image, if one has not yet entered the formless jhanas. But the main focus is the mind. Cultivating wisdom within concentration means observing the arising and ceasing of the factors of jhana. For example, the mind flows down to fix on the nose. Mindfulness knows in time. Then mind that flows to the nose ceases, and a firmly established mind arises. When it flows again, it is known again. Sometimes it shifts within, pondering, seeking objects within concentration, moving subtly inside. Mindfulness keeps knowing, and it returns to firm stability, moment by moment. Then it moves again to cultivate wisdom within. One sees initial thoughts, vitakka, arise and cease. Sustained thoughts, vichan, arise and cease. Rapture, arise and cease. Happiness, arise and cease. One-pointedness, arise and cease. Equanimity, arise and cease. Equanimity may last for a moment, then shift into happiness, and so on, turning back and forth. This is simply the mind shifting within jhana, rising and falling. This is cultivating wisdom within concentration. It is not that sitting in meditation and then seeing spirits, ghosts, hells, or heavens is cultivating wisdom within jhana. That is not jhana. Such experiences occur when the mind is in access concentration, not in jhana. Once the mind has entered jhana, it does not wander to know such things. It remains firmly fixed on the meditation object. This method is extremely rare and very few can practice it. For example, most of my students lack concentration, so they mainly practice the path of using wisdom preceding concentration. Some students follow the path of concentration preceding wisdom, though not many. Those inclined toward this path usually go to forest masters, training in jhana practice. As for students who cultivate wisdom within jhana, I have only seen one. He had mastery in jhana and was also skilled in developing wisdom within jhana. He could see inner phenomena arising and passing continuously. This is difficult, harder than entering jhana and then cultivating wisdom afterward. It is the most difficult of all meditation methods. The Buddha taught all of these. They are in the Tipitaka, such as the Yukanta Sutta, where Venerable Ananda gave a summary. The practice includes concentration preceding wisdom. For example, training the mind to be firmly calm until absorption concentration or appanasamati, where the mind rests in equanimity and remains stable for a long time. After such training, one withdraws. If the mind does not withdraw, one leads it out to contemplate the body, to develop wisdom by observing the body. This is the path using concentration preceding wisdom. The second path is for those who cannot attain absorption concentration. Then one uses wisdom preceding concentration, just as I have taught. Practice some meditation subject without expecting to enter absorption concentration. The mind may calm down a little, not for long, only momentarily. Then the mind emerges from concentration, then we can see the mind at work. For example, breathing in put, breathing out to. The mind may calm down slightly, then wander off to think of something else. The mind is working, or while breathing in put, breathing out to, the mind desires calm. With craving, it plunges into forcing the breath. If we know this in time, knowing the mind, then at that moment we are beginning to cultivate wisdom. For those unable to reach absorption concentration, the suitable way to cultivate wisdom is contemplation of the mind, observing the mind, which is citta nupassana satipatthana. For those proficient in jhana, the suitable meditation subject is contemplation of the body. Because when entering absorption concentration, the mind does not function much. If one observes the mind then, one will not see change, not see the three characteristics. It is just empty. Therefore, the suitable subjects for those who practice jhana are contemplation of the body or of physical feelings. For example, in the tradition of Goenka, one first practices mindfulness of breathing until the mind is truly calm, and then observes bodily sensations. Is that correct? Yes, but it is another correct path. Or in the case of the earlier generation of forest masters, they would recite Putto while breathing, enter deep concentration, absorption concentration, and then upon emerging, contemplate the body. Is that correct? Yes. But meditation subjects are not limited to these few. There are many. The meditation subjects the Buddha taught are not restricted in such a way that if we practice like this before, we must practice only this way. If we truly look at what the Buddha taught, there are many approaches because people's temperaments differ and the accumulations of past qualities and supporting conditions differ. Some people have trained a lot in concentration. While they sit, the mind quickly becomes calm and remains silent. For them, the teacher instructs to come out and contemplate the body. Luangpu Man taught, excessive tranquility practice leads to sluggishness. Excessive contemplation leads to restlessness. The essential point is mindfulness in daily life. This is the third section, and the heart of true practice is mindfulness in daily life. During formal practice, some train the mind to be firmly fixed on a single object. This unwavering mind on one object is called absorption concentration or appana samadhi. If we cannot attain absorption concentration, but can make the mind peaceful a little at a time, and then the mind resumes its activity, at that point, we can directly cultivate contemplation of the mind or cittanupassana. We will see that the mind is sometimes the knower, then the thinker, sometimes the knower, then the seer of forms, sometimes the knower, then the hearer of sounds, sometimes the knower, then the taster, the smeller, or the one aware of bodily contact. The knowing mind alternates in this way. If we can train such that the knowing mind arises between each type of drifting mind, we will see the mind arising and ceasing. Therefore, if we cannot maintain jhana, we should not fear that we cannot attain the path or its fruits. We just train using wisdom preceding concentration. The third way is using concentration together with wisdom, which is also taught in the scriptures, as Venerable Ananda explained. How is concentration combined with wisdom practice? If concentration preceding wisdom is already difficult, concentration combined with wisdom is even more so, because it requires mastery in absorption concentration, being able to enter it at will, remain at will, cultivate wisdom within it at will, and exit at will. One must be skilled in entering, in sustaining, in cultivating wisdom within, and in exiting jhana. Proficiency in cultivating wisdom within jhana requires skill in observing the mind. We will see the factors of jhana arise and fall. Vitaka, vichara, piti, and sukha, arising and passing. We will see clearly that all these dhammas arise, persist, cease beyond control, beyond command. Therefore, cultivating wisdom together with concentration is difficult. Many cannot even attain absorption concentration. To cultivate wisdom within absorption is even more demanding. In our era, such practitioners are very rare. Most who can enter absorption concentration do so in order to strengthen the knowing mind. Then, upon emerging from concentration, they see the elements, the aggregates, the workings of the body and the workings of bodily feelings. Observing the mind not merging into the body, not merging into the feelings, we then see body as one part, feelings as another, mind as another. Each functions separately. This is difficult, though somewhat less so. The simplest method is, as I have said, practice with a meditation subject. When the mind moves, know so. When the mind does something, simply know so. In this way, we cultivate wisdom. There is no need for regret or sorrow about not being able to enter jhana. Just keep practicing every day. In practice, let there be momentary concentration. Cultivate wisdom. At a certain point, the mind will gather and become calm by itself. But it will not collect deeply into absorption concentration. It will gather into momentary concentration. The mind rests temporarily. When it regains energy, it goes out again to observe moment by moment, seeing arising and ceasing in each moment. We continue training in this way. At the moment the noble path arises, the mind will enter absorption, concentration on its own. It will be automatic. By observing the mind's arising and ceasing continuously, eventually the mind will gather into absorption by itself. Why does the mind collect? Because through continuous cultivation of wisdom, we see clearly that everything arises and ceases, arises and ceases. Finally, the mind becomes balanced. When it becomes balanced, all struggle ceases.